So before the next chapter comes out, I want to just talk about Elentir right now, before we get any more info. Because as of right now, like, all we had was at the very end of the last chapter, Elentir's name is mentioned from the White Witch. It's funny how we get a character who we know a decent amount enough right now, but we don't have a name for her. Mentions a character we have absolutely nothing about, but we have a name for him. But I thought about like trying to do it more in the making this more of like the editing style that I'm trying to figure out. I've been slacking on it, been a little lazy, but I realized like there's nothing really to look at because it's just a name. The only thing I really have so far is like one picture, and it's not even really a picture. It's more of just kind of like the set that I can really see for it, and that being the way that Elentir was very ominously with no real context dropped reminded me a lot of when Zareth first mentioned Acnologia. Because I was going to mention a couple things that maybe Elentir could relate to, but everything that I was going to mention was really more towards Selene, and we don't know entirely if Elentir is going to really relate to Selene. I have seen some theories because I have looked into at least the name, like Ellen, like Elentir. So Ellen, from what I found, from like mythology. I'm trying to remember what exactly it was. I think it's Greek. It means like torch, beautiful light, shining. It can be related to like Helios, the sun, like the sun ray, and Tyr, like having to do with like I think it's like language, wisdom, in Armenian. I think I'm not too sure exactly on that one, but I've read a little bit. I haven't done like a million things of research. I want to wait a little bit more before I kind of like try and tinfoil hat deep dive to at least have a little bit more of an idea of what Elentir is. I'm hoping we get that in the next chapter. It'd be really weird to have this kind of set up and not get something from the White Witch. Maybe like just a little bit of additional wording, because there's a couple things I want to just talk about in the idea of what Elentir could be, and there's a lot of really interesting ideas. Like, just in the idea that I've seen some people float around is because, like, when I said that the name Ellen part of Elentir translates to, like, torch, bright, and, have to do with, like, the sun, that people are wondering, like, what if Elentir is a dragon god, kind of like level character? I guess it wouldn't be, like, technically a dragon god, because the 5 dragon gods are called dragon gods because they're worshipped like gods and seen as gods from, like, their followers. So you would have to have, like, people like that already worshipping them, but then it'd be like, well, why don't we know about them? It would have to be very specific, but it would just could be a very powerful dragon that is on level with the dragon gods, and it could work for multiple reasons. And I think the two big ones is, one, we know Selene is next. Selene being, a moon dragon, what goes opposing to the moon? You could have the sun dragon. And if you had like a sun dragon god obviously playing against the moon dragon god, that'd be just a really interesting kind of setup. But also the fact that the dragon gods are themed after the Japanese luminary days, and the ones missing we don't have are the sun day and the earth day. Now I have theorized that Natsu possibly could become the sun dragon god, just because it's it could be seen as like a fiery thing. Obviously the sun itself is a giant ball of gas, flaming super sun, or super giant fireball pretty much. And then Earth Dragon God, could depend. I think Eleftheria's side planet Eleftheria seems suspicious to me. I think that's going to be somewhere possibly on his side of things. But if you have like this potential other dragon be, somehow in some way related to Selene, very interesting enough. I've seen people float that. Elentir could be some form of kind of cosmic monster, because the fact that she says Elentir swallowed the moon. And if you go back and look at the chapter, when they were over in Dramil, it was only 3 days. So it's only been 3 days since they defeated Alderaan. And when they were fighting Alderaan, like when Alderaan first got up and you go over to wherever Selene is, at Black Moon Mountain, you can see the full moon. And so only 3 days later, the moon is crescent. So when she says it swallowed the moon, it maybe a spell covered the moon, or potentially the moon was actually like consumed, like actually swallowed part of the moon. There's a couple. There's two other kind of like runaround theories with it, because we do know a little bit about the moon in Fairy Tail. We know that the moon has like dispelling properties. That's why I believe that the White Witch's control over the Fairy Tail Guild members went away. I think Celine did that. As well as we know that the moon is magic, because it's the moon's concentrated light can dispel any magic supposedly in the series. We don't know like the full extent. Obviously, it's not like very heart is going to get snuffed out by the moon. But the moon itself has a lot of magic, and potentially, I'm always just going to sneak this in there, potentially maybe Acnologia could come back, because if the moon is, has this giant magic source, he could potentially, be some form of monster to consume it. That's just something that I've been running the theory of when it comes to Acnologia for a while, just because, like, he consumed part of time. He essentially became a time dragon. So maybe somehow he's still alive because of, time shenanigans and something crazy. But cosmic entity, possibly related to Acnologia, could be Acnologia in some different form. Either way, right? Either way, interesting enough from either of those directions. But there's also what I think is probably the most expansive of a theory. Like, my favorites would be either like being Acnologia, because I would really like Acnologia to kind of come back, because I think anybody can look at the fight at the end of the Alvarez and see that there was, like, the pace picked up. I think a lot of people believed it was rushed. So, like, doing something to bring Acnologia back to where he can, be the antagonist in a much more steadily paced thing, like 100 Years Quest, would be really good. I'd like that a lot. Plus, obviously, Acnologia showing up when the Dragon Gods are active would be a really cool twist, and it'd be badass to see how exactly they react to him. But the one that is the most expansive in the story, in the lore, and just the world itself would be if, similar to how Ankh Saram is to Zareth, what if Elentir is that same equivalent to the White Witch? What if Elentir is a god? Because Elentir, assuming that the naming that I, looking up is, the name Elentir is relating to the two things, Elen and Tyr from, in lore, because I believe, like Elen, I believe, is from Greek mythology, and then Tyr, like, I've seen it like Armenian and then like Greek and stuff, different kinds. Maybe the naming of gods in relation to like the origin of where the name came from could relate to it. Because say that this is a god, like not Kronos, but like the same kind of tier that Ankh Saram is. Obviously not talking about Ikusa Tsunagi, but something more like Ankh Saram. It could be the perfect way to open up viewing Fairy Tail's god pantheon. Something like imagine if we eventually see this character Elentir, and Elentir is like the same kind of god that Ankh Saram is, and then like viewing from that character, we eventually like peer into other gods. And Kronos could still be a god. Maybe it'll be like, Demaria with her god soul can only do a fraction of what Kronos could do. It was, it's like a conduit style. It's like, just because you can funnel my power through you doesn't mean you're going to get 100%. I guess kind of like an easy example, Black Clover has the Devil Possessed, they can only use up to 80%. What if it's something like that, where you only could use a fraction of a god's power with God's Soul? That'd be maybe the trade-off for having like a god's power. But I would be really interested, in my opinion, either the Acnologia one would just be really cool, because I'd love to see Acnologia back. I'd like to see him just get a longer and more kind of like spread out performance. And I think with the Dragon Gods and characters being a lot more powerful, to the point, like, I think Natsu is much closer to contending with a Dragon God. Because, like, if you assume that Alderaan, maybe Alderaan with his God Seeds down is like where his power level was before, he spent the 300 years resting, or it could easily be that, like, it was, each one of the God Seeds is like a connection to his power. So, 3 of them knocked out, he goes out to 40%. And Wolfen was sort of taken out, but he wasn't dead. If you want to count it, it'd be like, obviously then to 20%. It'd be like, oh, if Natsu can beat one of them at 20%, when without Dragon Force, they were able to, they were losing to a 50% Mercephobia. I think that would make sense if, like, full power Natsu could take a 20% one, because he did tank a roar from Mercephobia, so that is definitely something that you can definitely say for him. His durability was able to withstand that. Obviously, his roar was completely snuffed out, so it's not like he was at that level, but his durability was enough to take it. Dragon Slayers always have shown to be extremely durable. Fury is kind of the only exception, just because of the way that hers is obviously centered way more on offense. But I would love to see the Acnologia. But like I said, something with Elentir being like a god to like introduce Ankh Saram would be really cool, because Ankh Saram is, logically, if you wanted to have a full end boss for Fairy Tail, it'd be Ankh Saram, because Ankh Saram is the one that made Zeref. He is like as far as we know, the highest level god kind of being within the series. Like, we have Acnologia, but like from just where he should be, given like stuff like he wouldn't be able to destroy Zeref's curse. And Zeref's curse, is from Ankh Saram. The only thing that could destroy something that made by Ankh Saram is another thing by Ankh Saram. It would be really cool. Unless Ankh Saram ends up being kind of like a concept and not like a physical being, then yeah, then go with the Acnologia stuff. But anyway, other than that though, comment below, tell me your thoughts are about this, and really like, does anybody else like agree with like kind of my ideas? If there's anything else that you can think of, maybe drop it by. This is just something that I've been thinking over the last week and a half off of the little bit of info we have. I really want to see what else it could be, because maybe it's like a spell, maybe it's like some form of like event that happens in space, like, oh, you have to do this before whatever this happens, or like the planet will implode or something. I would really love for Acnologia to come back. That'd be so amazing. But either way, like I said, comment below, thumbs up the video, befriend the like button and the subscribe button, and check out my other videos. But other than that, I appreciate everybody who's already subscribed. Thank you all for listening. Bye.